know you all want to see the end result, and it's all very exciting, but we've got to back up a bit first, so don't get too carried away. First of all, yes, that is a Toyota MR2. And yes,
damn, son, where'd you find this?
that is a jet engine. More specifically, that's a Rolls-Royce Viper 535 from a Strikemaster. And yes, the plan is that we'll put these two things together.
Yeah, boy.
Now you might be wondering, why on earth would you want to do that? Well, I have a better question for you. Why the f*** not? Let's dive in and have a look at some details. What you'll be looking at now is how the car arrived when I first bought it. I haven't done much to the car at this point, and I'm just giving a general overview of the state of things. This car was actually rescued from a military base where it was somebody's project. It looks like they'd started stripping the car down, and this is exactly how I picked it up. We did originally try and start the car, and we were going to flip this and sell it and put it back together, but once we had a look at the state of the interior and the amount of parts that were missing, basically decided to do something silly with it instead. So here we are. Bumper isn't on, it's just loose. Check the front. Everything seems to be here. Whether or not it works, I don't know. To be honest, I'm not even going to test it. I'm going to strip all of that. Headlights as well. Don't really know if one's working and one isn't, but given the fact that one's up and one's down, it's a good bet that one of them doesn't work. Standard wheels. Again, the wing was off when I bought it. I've not stripped any of this shit down yet. This car is a moonroof model. The MR2 came in 3 variants. You had the hardtop, the T-top, and the moonroof. This one's a moonroof variant, but missing the moonroof. It's sat under a carport, so it's not been getting wet, but it's seen better days. I won't be building any of this back up. The only thing that I'm going to be keeping in here is things required to steer the car and things required to stop the car, so brakes and steering. The rest of it's going to come out. Crash bar will stay in because it supports the steering column, but all the electric's going to come out. Fuel tank will come out as well. One of the factors as to why we didn't end up building this car back up, as you can see on that panel, quite a lot of dents, and that looks like it's had some filler at some point, so that is not original. But there's the engine. Boot's just full of parts. Bin bag. None of this really matters because all I want is the shell. Another reason why we decided not to put this car back on the road is the amount of rust work it would have needed in order to pass an MOT. We will deal with a lot of this rust as part of the rebuild, but it wouldn't make sense for us to put this back on the road. Now that you've got an overview of the car, let's start stripping it down. Here you can see me taking all the stuff out of the frunk. We're taking out the wiring loom, everything that we don't need, and I'm also under the car removing the power steering. I decided quite early on that I didn't want to run the power steering. You can replace the entire rack on these with a manual version, however I decided not to do that as I didn't have one and figured it would be fine to just run the power steering rack minus the power. It does mean you'll have a very heavy steering. However, since this car will only be doing straight lines on a drag strip, I don't really think that's going to be an issue. I did end up looping the input and output hydraulic lines to the rack and filling it with a small amount of fluid just to prevent any corrosion. With the frunk empty, it's now time to turn our attention to the engine. However, I didn't actually record any of that process, so you're going to have to use your imagination. Essentially, the engine was in, I lifted the back end of the car up, and then the engine was out.
Nice.
You can fill in the gaps in between, but that's essentially it. There's loads of videos of this on YouTube anyway. For the rest of the strip down, similar story in terms of recording it. I kind of didn't. So there's a few pictures in here, but we do rejoin the action with me giving a bit of an update on what's been going on since the last video. I might have skipped ahead a little bit on the videos and not covered it, but this is the state of the interior now. Completely stripped. I've got my plastic windows installed with the little sliding panel in there. I ended up actually installing those in some factory locations that I modified slightly with a riv nut on the plastic there, so it can be adjusted up and down. Everything in the doors is all stripped out, so there's no window in there. The only thing that's left is this solenoid for the power lock, but to be honest, it's just a bit of a faff to get that out, and it's not really necessary for the amount of weight that's going to save, so I'm just going to leave that in there. The rest of it, I would like to maintain the ability to lock the doors for shows, etc. So I've just left all that alone. But all the power gear is out. All the wiring harness is out, so there's now no bridge between there. And as you can see, the interior, we've got the single pedal for the brake. Ignition barrel is still there, albeit minus the wiring. People tend to hack these to bits anyway, and this was no exception. So the wiring harness was already, hacked to bits. So I've chopped that plug off so I can use that to repair other MR2s. I've left a bit of length on these because I may want to tap into this later on. I don't think I will, but it's nice to have the option, so I'll leave that there. Steering wheel is obviously still in place. That mat there is just to protect the floor. There is nothing underneath it. Everything else is completely stripped, as you can see. All the doors the same, plastic window, but with no sliding panel. And then coming to the rear of the car, I've put the wheels back on it for just ease of moving it around, but as you can see, I've completely stripped the inside of this. The fuel tank also, I'll give you a quick look down there. Fuel tank is out, literally just the brace that's left for the handbrake. But the fuel tank is out and all the stuff that goes with it. All the pipework is out. Even the sound deadening and heat shielding that's on the firewall, I've taken all that off. Pretty much every bolt that doesn't need to be there, I've taken out. Subframe's back on. You can see better now that hole that's in the subframe. So I'm going to need to do something about that, or replace the subframe. Most likely it'll be replacing the subframe. And then on the back wall, similar story. Everything's taken off. Pretty much an empty shell. Apologies, I didn't record any of that. You just kind of get a bit carried away, don't you? When you start taking stuff apart, you just carry on, keep going, and then suddenly you've done it all, and then I forgot to get the camera out. Right, well that's pretty much it for the stripped down portion of this video, so I'm going to call that part 1. Unfortunately, the theme of me forgetting to get the camera out does continue throughout the build, so the next episode may be more of a slideshow than a video. I was rushing to get Welven ready for Jap Show finale, so I didn't really have a lot of time to do anything other than work on the car. I didn't have time to get the camera out, so if you're interested in that, you can have a look, but I promise now that I've got my head around this video editing a little bit, I will get the camera out a bit more moving forward. Thanks for watching.